Funding for this program has been made possible by the O'Shaughnessy Foundation and by
I have of late, though wherefore I know not, lost all my mirth, forgone all custom of exercises, and indeed it goes so heavily with my disposition that this goodly frame, the earth, seems to me a sterile promontory. This most excellent canopy, the air. Look you, this brave o'erhanging firmament, this majestical roof fretted with golden fire. Why, it appears no other thing to me than a foul and pestilent congregation of vapors. What a piece of work is man! How noble in reason, how infinite in faculty, in form and moving, how express and admirable. In action, how like an angel. In apprehension, how like a god. The beauty of the world, the paragon of animals, and yet, to me, what is this quintessence of dust? Man delights not me. No, no woman neither, though by your smiling you seem to say so.
Watch WLAE Digital Broadcast Channel 32.3 for Catholic TV, offering programming relevant to Catholic viewers, including live religious services, Vatican events, talk shows, devotional programs, educational entertainment, and children's programs. You're watching WLAE, New Orleans Public Television.
Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934, is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans.
Inspired by the culture and spirit of New Orleans, the contemporary abstract and figurative work of Tony Mose and the urban expressionist art and jewelry of Tracy Mose are now on display and available at Esom Art Galleries. Esom Art Galleries are artist-owned and are located in Uptown New Orleans on Magazine Street and on Royal Street in the heart of the French Quarter. Esom Art Galleries, inspiration from the soul of New Orleans. Max Durbus Realtors has been providing commercial and industrial real estate services to its clients for nearly 100 years. Since 1934, Max Durbus has been locally owned and operated throughout the greater New Orleans area, including the North Shore, Hammond, and even the Mississippi Gulf Coast and beyond. We focus on your commercial real estate needs so you don't have to. More information is available at 504-733-4555.
Good evening and welcome to Primetime Sports, and what a glorious Tuesday it is, y'all. You know why? Because the New Orleans Saints, the LSU Tigers, and the Tulane Green Wave all won. It started with LSU. Early in the morning, they started at 11 o'clock. They waxed Mississippi State. Then it was Tulane they avenged their loss from last year, beating USM, Southern Miss. And then last night, we all know the New Orleans Saints took care of business against the Carolina Panthers, a team that's had their number. So we'll start right there. Last night, they went into this game as a 3-point favorite on the road. And that's because Carolina, even though they'd beaten the Saints 8 out of 10, Carolina had a rookie quarterback, Bryce Young, the first pick of the draft. But that guy right there, Tony Jones, how about him? There's Cam Jordan. But Tony Jones had 2 touchdowns to LSU. Saints won this game 20-17. It was a defensive struggle, just like the first game for a long time. The Saints defense, let's just start right there. There's Olave's great catch. We'll talk about that in a second. But the Saints defense was spectacular. First game, they gave up 5 field goals, no touchdown. This game, 3 field goals and a meaningless touchdown and 2-point conversion at the end. This game was 20-9 with just over a minute to go. Carolina scored. They tried the onside kick, but they got the 2-point conversion, made it 20-17. But put it this way, the Saints almost went 8 full quarters to start the season without giving up a touchdown. Hey, y'all, this is the NFL. That just does not happen. But let's talk about the game a little bit. The defense, like I said, spectacular. Guys like Demario Davis, Pete Werner, I mean, the linebackers are playing tremendous. We all knew we were going to get defensive end, and certainly the secondary is the best. I say the best secondary the Saints have ever had as a unit. And I mean that. When you watch this group, they're going to be the best. I mean, there's been better players at times, but this is the best unit. But let's talk about what happened on offense, because when it mattered, they got some big plays. Mike Thomas was the main guy in the first half. Michael Thomas is coming back. He had 55 yards, but he had some key receptions to get those 2 field goals they got, the 6-3 halftime lead. But in the second half, that's the catch on the butt that they said was out of bounds, and they called it back, and that was down near the goal line, and they got held to a field goal. But in the second half, both Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed both made giant catches. Chris Olave's was just beautiful. And he had the guy draped all over him, one-hand catch right there. He grabbed it with his fingertips, as you see, and he was being held back. And then he pulled it in with 2 hands before he hit the ground. But tremendous play to keep that drive going and lead to a touchdown. But you also said Rashid Shaheed, when it looked like the Carolina Panthers might be coming back, they hit a big play downfield, just like they did last week with him. Spectacular. So this receiving core and Derek Carr are getting on. Those 3 guys had 212 yards between them, 86 for Olave, 55 for Thomas, and 63 for Shaheed. So I'm going to say this. The Carr only had 228 yards passing. He's not using the tight end a lot. I know Foster Moreau got 2 early catches, but they didn't do anything out of the backfield a whole lot. But Jamal Williams went down with an injury, so we got to watch that. But if you're worried about the Saints, think about this. Their best player on offense, well, Taysom Hill was last night. He ran for 75 yards. But their best player on offense is Alvin Kamara. So you're stacking victories. You got the best team, one of the 3 best teams the Saints will play in week 1. And this was a division foe on the road on Monday night. You got that win. Just worry about the wins. The defense is what matters. The offense will come around. All right, let's get to the LSU game, because that was dominant. I mean, dominant. LSU looked shaky, obviously, against Florida State. They looked shaky in the first half against Grambling on defense, but then they blew Grambling out 72-10. But this game mattered. This is an SEC opponent. You know, they played, that time was wrong because they moved this up to an 11 o'clock start. And that's early. LSU fans hate to do those early starts. But it was on the road with the cowbell. But LSU blew him out in the first half. That guy, Malik Neighbors, we're going to talk about him because he did some crazy stuff. He had 190 yards receiving in the first half, 9 or 10 receptions, ended up with 13 catches, 236 yards. And in the first half, he had 4 catches of 25 yards or more in one half. That hadn't been done since Jamar Chase back in 19. How great was that? And I got to tell you also, he and his quarterback, you know, Jaden Daniels, were the co-SEC Players of the Week, and they deserved it. Jaden Daniels, 4 touchdowns, 2 rushing, 2 passing. The first time I can say that this guy looked like an NFL quarterback with his arm. We know he can get around on his feet, but his arm, and he had precision on long passes. I was impressed. He did it all. He showed the entire array, the best game he's ever had in college, certainly with LSU. And they was good. Harold Perkins played great. That great phenom linebacker last year now looked like the Harold Perkins of last year. He's one of the most destructive players on the LSU Tigers. By the way, LSU plays Arkansas this week at 6 p.m. And I forgot to tell you, the Saints have the Packers at noon on Sunday. And let's go to Tulane. They beat USM, Southern Miss, 21-3. So, you know, Tulane was 12-2 last year, and one of those losses was to Southern Miss. So they avenged that. Kai Horton played again, the backup quarterback. He had 2 touchdown passes, 186 yards, and they play Nichols this Saturday at 6 p.m. at Ullman. Michael Pratt, well, we don't know when he's coming back. Michael Pratt played 1 game, and that's a little deceiving because that number, he's number 1 in passer rating because he went 15 for 16 with 4 touchdowns in the first game. But that shows you how important he is to this team, and they're still getting some W's, so that's good. Hey, by the way, the Pels, they start bringing players in about a week or so for training camp, and that training camp officially starts October 3rd. But by the way, injuries, we hear in the Trey Murphy III is going to be out for like 12 weeks, and Jose Alvarado, it's already starting. Hopefully it won't continue. And Alabama, how about Alabama? The first time they're out of the top 10 since 2014. That's right, 128 weeks was the second most of all time being a top 10 team. They are out after that lackluster performance against South Florida. It was 3-3 late in the game. They only won 17-3 on late touchdowns that didn't matter. Alabama's out. Mel Tucker, sorry to say this, but he is out. He just signed a 10-year, $95 million contract in 2021. Sexual harassment. Too bad he's out. I mean, I hate that because I liked Mel a good bit. He coached at LSU with Saban back in 2001 or so. And the Cowboys, I got to give Will, our producer, a little love. The Cowboys look like they're going to join San Francisco and Philadelphia as the elite teams in the NFC, and hopefully the Saints can join them eventually. And how about my next guest? The first time ever on Primetime Sports that we're going to have one guest, because I had him in the Zoom about 2 months ago. He's in town. Josh Booty, the 5th overall pick in Major League Baseball back in 1994, came back to play at LSU. He played with the Marlins in baseball. He played with the Browns and the Raiders and Seahawks in football in the NFL, and he's going to be great. He's coming up next right here on Primetime Sports. Hey, welcome back to Primetime Sports. Hey, we've had a run of LSU quarterbacks on this show, some Tulane quarterbacks as well. I love having the nostalgia, particularly in the beginning of the season. Well, we have a guy that was on Zoom earlier, and he told me, he says, Scott, when I come in town, I'm going to come on your show. And here he is. We've got a lot to talk about. His name is Josh Booty. He was a guy you've heard about since the early 90s. You're like, who was this guy? The 5th pick in the Major League Baseball draft. He was the Player of the Year, USA Today, not just the first-team All-American, the Player of the Year. Peyton Manning was second team that year. He was first-team All-American that year. In baseball as well, obviously he was the 5th pick of the draft, so you know he was good there. He played shortstop, then moved to third base. But then, after 5 years in the minors and a little bit with the Marlins, he came back to LSU and played 2 years and was the SEC first team, all-SEC team in 2000, and that is the year Nick Saban started. So he played for both DiNardo and Saban. We're going to get into all that because we got some time. I've never done this before, but I'm taking one guest the entire show because we got lots to talk about, and none better than my man Josh Booty.
I love you, baby. Thank you doing, man? Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to hang out with you, and normally it's in a great setting, in a bar or restaurant somewhere, talking sports, and of course talking Tim Brando and Timmy B and all the stories. But appreciate you having me, man. This is fun.
Hey, by the way, it's fun to be Josh Booty, isn't it?
Sometimes.
I mean, I'm thumbing through your Instagram and going through. I'm like, there's this John Elway in one picture, John Daly next. you seem to have a good time with life.
Man, I do. You know, my dad always taught us to, you know, develop great relationships everywhere you go. I was blessed to have wonderful parents, mother and father, and my dad was a coach, preacher, you know, and those guys were leaders of men, right, or families, and so it was always a family atmosphere everywhere we went. There was people always coming over to the house, so I always developed like relationships or watched my parents develop them really as a young kid. And as I grew up, my dad goes, always keep up with everybody you meet. You never know, you know, whether you work for them or whether you'll do a business deal with them or whether you'll play golf with them one day, and keep those relationships all over the country. And that's what I've done.
And you're so good at it. Let me say this. Since you started with your parents, I'm going to go there because I got to know your dad back in the 90s. And I mean, he's a legend. Your dad, Johnny Booty, there with the beard, is a legend. He coached at Evangel with that dynasty that they had. They had the passing leader every year. They had national records. Josh broke the record in 1993, right? The all-time passing yards. Philip Dees, I believe, may have broken after that. And I know Brock Berlin definitely did. And that was 3 in a row. We have pictures of those 3. But, I mean, let's talk about your dad as a person because he went to Woodlawn, right?
Yep.
The home of Terry Bradshaw, the home of Joe Ferguson. But you brought that up because there's Bradshaw right there. How about that? What a producer! What a producer I have right here.
Look at that face mask on Ferguson.
Ferguson played with O.J. Simpson. But
that's right.
I mean, were these guys you knew growing up too?
Yeah, I did. You know, Terry. Their family lived next door to us. Craig actually lived 2 doors down. His brother played in the NFL 7 years with the Oilers. I think he's bigger than Terry, 6'7". So I'd always get out in the yard and try to throw with Craig. And Craig had a bazooka, a lot like Terry. And you know, I remember as a kid, I asked Terry, and my dad talks about it all the time. I'll go, how did you get such a good arm, Terry? And he goes, son, because I threw a lot. He goes, because I throw a lot. And I said, so shoot, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to throw.
Is that how it happened? Wow.
That's how he said. He goes, I just threw a lot. Now, A.L. Williams was their head coach at Woodlawn High School, and they had a passing attack. They were more pro style back then because that was the spread back then.
Yeah, AFL was doing that.
Yeah, they did the pro style stuff, but Terry would throw they would throw the deep comebacks across the field from hash, from a right hash to the left side. Right. Yeah, and my dad was always like, if you can do that, son, you can play on Sundays. And so, you know, my dad was a college quarterback. He had gone to Arkansas, followed Joe Ferguson, but their staff went to the NFL. My dad transferred to Mississippi State. I was born in Starkville, so I was kind of a semi Ron Polk, Jackie Sherrill, Mississippi State fan growing up until we moved back to Shreveport, where my parents are from, when I was like in 3rd or 4th grade. And you know, then it's all LSU when you're living in Louisiana. But my dad was a great football player. He was an all-state. He was a track guy. He was a runner. And you know, Abram, my younger brother, played receiver at LSU. Started as a freshman, was a speed demon. I've got a son that ran a 4.4, so there's speed in my family. I didn't get that, however.
I did see the 4.9. I mean,
I'm like a 4.8. You know, I don't know.
I saw one thing said 4.9, but it must have been a bad timer.
Well, when I got to playing baseball, I moved from shortstop to third base in the minor leagues. I was faster growing up, and then I think I put on weight to play third base in the big leagues, and we were all lifting weights trying to hit home runs. But so I was a little slower when I came back and probably played football at LSU. But when you start running away from those big DNs, you start to learn how to get fast again.
Let's get slim again, right?
That's right.
Well, real quick, your dad, was he in the same era? You said he followed Ferguson. So was he
71? He graduated high school.
So Bradshaw was older because Bradshaw.
He's like 65.
Yeah, okay.
Ferguson's 69. And my dad was 71. So my dad played on the state championship team that Woodlawn had in 69, but he started at safety for the team, was the backup, and then played the next 2 years at quarterback for Woodlawn and was all state.
Right.
And all American in some publications. But Woodlawn was one of those schools like Evangel, just, you know, rewinded 20 years, you know, back to where they had a run of quarterbacks like those guys. There was a guy named Trey Prather who no one really talks about anymore. He passed away in the Vietnam War. But he was an LSU signee, and he was before Terry. So they had a run of 4 All-American quarterbacks in a row. And Joe was probably the best one that they ever had. That's what they say back in Shreveport. Is Joe Ferguson was the most accomplished, probably the most prolific, the smoothest at that age.
Smooth. Oh, yeah.
He was so smooth. He played 17 years in the league.
Terry was raw, right?
Terry was raw. He was just a stud.
Yeah, and Joe was the quarterback. I remember growing up, people like remember this, but I was in the game. I was at the game when O.J. Simpson, the only game he got held to under 100 yards a year, he got 2,003 yards in 14 games. It was not a 16-game season. Or
17 now.
17 now, you're right. But he came and
And I remember Joe was as big for Louisiana people as because he was at the height of his thing. The Bills were great, and OJ had a big part of that. But the fact is the lineage of North Louisiana quarterbacks is stout. And I want to go to how y'all built, since we have a lot of time, the Evangel thing. Because picture back in '93, I'm in Atlanta, and I'm doing this. I'm just doing Braves stuff, and they said, "Hey, we want you to become a full-time producer, not just working your way up. You got to start doing other shows before we put you on something big like the Braves." I mean, I was doing the associate producer with the Braves. So I was like, "Okay, this show Countdown to Signing Day," and I'm like, "Okay, what is it? It's about recruiting." I'm like, "I'm not into that," but I'm glad I did it because A, it got me producing experience, and B, I found out about you, and I knew about Peyton because I'm from New Orleans.
Sure.
But y'all came up the same year. And I just remember seeing your footage, and I remember Ed Daniels would send me stuff. I'm like, this dude's really good. And I was like, who is it? What is Evangel, Ed? He said, this is like this little factory, kind of like Curtis, building up in North Louisiana, like John Curtis here. So I want you to tell people how this thing started, because people that are maybe under 30 don't know what a powerhouse the school became in the 90s and early 2000s. And that, at least for that decade, that's when I was focusing on it. Y'all were just the school for the passers, period.
Yeah, I think we were wanting to do it differently.
Right.
And I think that, Denny Duron and my dad, who ran the operations of the school, the football program, the sports programs, the athletic department, whatever you want to call it, they had been around Woodlawn in the 70s and saw how different they did it with the passing. And they go, you know what, we're even going to do it more different. We're going to go spread 5 wides, wristbands, no huddle. I mean, we were all doing wristbands, even the linemen, before that was ever a thing in college football or anything.
I love this shot, though. You, your dad, Abram receiver.
That's JD. That's JD who played at SC.
And John David, who played at USC and with the Texans.
Yeah.
I mean, that is royalty picture right there. That's you in high school.
That's when we got beat by Haynesville my senior year, and I had a broken.
Will, do we have that box
put us on?
Because they were 14-1, right? And I remember when Brock Berlin had come on, be on my show twice. There's the box, so you can't see it well. But you didn't just get beat that one time.
We got hammered.
You got a lesson learned. But you had a broken something.
I had a broken right hand. I had 4 pins in my hand. I tried to play in that game, and I played for a quarter, and then I sat out because they were up 28-7. We fumbled like 4 kickoff returns in a row or 3 in a row, and they were up 28-7 after the first quarter, and we weren't going to come back from that.
What part of the season was that?
That was like the second game of the season.
So you came back and you won the championship?
Yeah, we came back and never lost again. But Haynesville won the class above us, the 2A state title that year.
They were good.
They had won 10
I had to teach a little bit. We can't just let you have no glory.
Haynesville was the real deal, and there was a big rivalry brewing in Shreveport area in that region because Haynesville was so good for so long, and Evangel knew. We weren't thinking about West Monroe yet or John Curtis yet. We were thinking about how can we beat Haynesville or be a better football program than Haynesville, because they had that thing running like a machine, and they were down here in the Superdome every year winning. And so that was Denny and my dad's goal, is to do it completely different than Haynesville throwing the football, because everybody ran the football. They ran the wing T, and just you didn't know which way they were going with 3 or 4 backs, wing back, slot backs running, and they were doing all this stuff. And Denny's like, we're going to go no huddle and 5 wides, and they can't simulate that in practice because no one throws the football. So we had a huge advantage, and that's why we started, piling up the yards and some of the records you mentioned and doing it completely different than Haynesville. And we were able to come back a year or 2 later and start beating the Haynesvilles of the world, and then ended up, the program started growing and kids started coming, and media attention. And then by the time Brock and JD were at Evangel, we were top 5 in the country.
So did John David follow Brock?
Yep.
Okay, so it's Philip Dees in between, who played at North Carolina.
Yep.
And he came on my show too, and from Shreveport to Atlanta. But Brock was the guy, because he was like you, USA Today Player of the Year 2 times. LeBron was the other one that had that, and LeBron.
Yep.
But that's Brock, number 7, D's 14, and that's you 10, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. JD is not in that picture, but he was so young.
Well, how many passing yards between the 3 of y'all? I mean, there's at least
35,000.
Right. Yeah, 35,000, 40. Because y'all were breaking each other's records. You had 11 something.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think there's a shot of you when you got that. Or maybe there's an article. You passed the thing. But the fact is it's a Christian-based school,
Yep.
and listen, I got to know. There it is. Booty shows he's #1. Got that.
I threw
headline.
that ball to my brother too, and he was a freshman.
He
and
caught the pass.
He caught the pass on an out route, and I was
that broke the record.
It broke the
Do you remember
all-time
whose record it was, or where was the guy from?
It was like Todd Marinovich or somebody from California.
Oh wow,
that
okay.
had the
USC
record.
legend. I mean, if it was him, for a number of reasons.
I think it was him, and I remember a few years later, Tim Couch broke my record.
Right.
I ended up playing with Tim in Cleveland, but I had to do an interview with Tim. This is way before we ended up playing together in the pros, but Tim had broke my record in Hazard County, Kentucky. You know, Kentucky.
He broke a lot of other records in Kentucky.
He was
right
awesome, and they threw the ball like we did all over the yard.
All
you know,
over.
and the fast-paced offenses started becoming more and more relevant. You know, and people like. You know, there's tons of players now that have broke that record, but we were the first ones to really do that.
Dennis Dunn was the coach. Duran was like the athletic director.
Yeah, quarterback coach, offensive play caller.
Yeah, play call. That's
principal. He was everything. Coach. There was it was a three-headed monster.
Johnny Booty, and then I know Rick Berlin helped too.
Yeah, he was a linebacker coach. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember they came to Atlanta, all of them, and I had dinner. And I know I've always prayed at meals, you know, not when I'm out with a big group, but I pray at meals.
Yeah.
But they really pray.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they pray loud. And it's like, I mean, I'm sitting there in Atlanta, I'm like,
pretty awesome.
No, it is. But I'm like,
they'll make you a believer, baby.
We believe, baby. No, it was awesome. And I love those guys, and I'm just glad. Are they still all around doing okay?
Yeah, they're all doing great. Denny's still he's the head coach at Evangel. It's come full circle. My kids are there now.
Wait, Denny Duran?
Denny Duran is the head football coach at Evangel.
He's still going.
Still going. 71, 2, 3 years old.
Well, let's say your dad started Calvary, which is what Doug Peterson, because we know he was an NFL quarterback, greatest job of all time. He got to back up Brett Favre, so he never got in the game. So he collected checks.
But young Doug right there.
There's Doug. I think that's
before the pressures of the NFL.
That's the Calvary Doug. But then he goes on to coach the Eagles.
That's right.
And wins a Super Bowl. And this is, he's an NFL quarterback come back. So talk about that. Your dad had
Andy Reid. Yeah, my dad was excited. Doug wanted to coach.
Now he's at Jacksonville.
Yeah, he wanted to coach football. He retired, and one of the things he said is he wanted to get some experience being a head coach, right? Just getting back into a different type of phase of his life, right? Or getting to a different phase of his life being a coach. He goes, but I do want to coach in the NFL one day, and if Andy Reid ever calls, I'm gonna go coach in the NFL. So my dad was an unbelievable opportunity to hire a guy coming out of the NFL.
Because he was an assistant with the Packers, right?
So
he was with the Packers.
That's right. So Andy Reid called him like 3 years after he was coaching at Calvary, and he made the jump back to the NFL because Andy Reid wanted him as a quality control guy on the offensive side of the ball. And then he ended up being a quarterback coach. He worked his way up, play caller, and then a head coach in the NFL.
Did he go to NLU? Where did he play college?
NLU, ULM now, yep.
And Tim Brando, shout out. That's another quarterback from NLU. Stan Humphries.
There's a lot of those.
You had some guys, man.
Raymond Phil-Yaw. Bubby Brister was sweet. Phil-Yaw never made the NFL, but he was a great player. They've had a lot of guys come through there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, some guys that played in the Super Bowl, too. But going further, when you got all the accolades and then LSU was a dream for you for a while to go play.
Big time.
And I remember as an LSU guy, and I wasn't that long out. I think I just got out of law school at that point. I was like, okay, this guy is coming to LSU. This is going to be – because we had a little dearth of talent for a while at the quarterback position. I think, no offense, but you had like Chad Loop. You had some guys like that. And it's like, we got to get somebody big. And I was like, okay, this guy's the first team All-American. He's coming. And then – talk about that whole signing with LSU and then going to play baseball. I think break it down for people that don't know what happened.
Yeah, so my senior year, I committed to LSU to play football and baseball. Senior year of high school.
Skip Burtman.
Skip Burtman, you got a book right
Curly
there.
Curly Hallman, maybe?
Curly Hallman was there.
Curly Hallman was a football coach.
Phil Bennett recruited me. He was the defensive guy. I love Phil Bennett.
He wasn't happy, though.
No, he was always ticked off.
he was telling he hoped the Marlins just
he was not happy with that deal. And, he recruited me hard. And, he told me if we can get you, LSU will be back. And I think the fan base kind of got wind of what you're saying. We got to get a guy here that can bring us back. But when Hallman was there and DiNardo was there, the offenses were very stale. It was a run, play action, or play action, run. There was no creativity to it. Yeah, and it's not anything to knock against those guys, but they were offensive line guys. They weren't conceptually.
They should have brought Duran, Booty.
They should have brought Evangelist Staff.
There's been some excitement.
I remember there's been many times where Spurrier or Mike Leach or Bowden, they would come and recruit Evangel and ask Denny and my dad, how are you guys doing this, right? Because no one else was doing it like that. There was 3 wides, like Florida State, they were running 3 wides, a Seminole package, with 2 backs, 3 wides. That's like Warwick Dunn years, right? Charlie Ward years. Those were my high school years. And then we were doing 9-yard shotgun. And so Spurrier would come in, and he actually experimented with it. Hal Mummy experimented with it.
These are legendary offensive minds, man.
And yeah, going, how are y'all doing it at such a high level and just racking up yards left and right? And I think some of them had tried it, but it was ineffective in the college game.
I mean, Hal Mummy is like one of the
unbelievable,
guys,
right?
Valdosta State, he did it, and obviously Kentucky, Tim Couch, and he made Tim Couch like the all-time leading.
And Leach was his offensive coordinator back in the day. I mean, they had unbelievable staff. But anyways, going back to football and baseball at LSU, Skip Bertman, they had just come off a national championship team. Todd Walker, Russ Johnson was shortstop. They both were going to get drafted. I said, you know what, I can play shortstop as a freshman, and start. And I knew I was going to be a high draft choice. It was, if I spurned baseball to go back to LSU, I knew I was going to play shortstop for that guy, Skip Bertman. And then I was going to try to play quarterback and start as early as I could on the football team.
Because they had just won their second national championship in 93, 91, 93, right?
Yeah, so baseball was at all-time high. Football was okay.
No, wasn't doing
6
well.
and 5, 7 and 4.
Not doing well during that period.
I mean, I went on a recruiting visit. I think we played Florida and we got beat 58-3, and then I went back for an Auburn deal, and it was 34-10. We're getting smoked. I'm like,
bad. It wasn't
man,
LSU.
it wasn't LSU football like we know it now.
My 4 years we went 36-6-2. Like in regular season. Now bowls were only 1 and 3. Those years I was it was a good time to be there. They didn't win national championships like they did in the 2000s, but they were good that 84 to 87 period.
You had a good run there, and
Tommy Hodson, Jeff Wickersham had some.
Yeah, they were
fun.
Balanced and they were prepared. Archer, I guess, years those were great.
Well, speaking of those guys, we'll finish how you got the draft pick thing.
Well, my senior year of baseball, I had a great senior year of football. We won the state title down here in the Dome.
Sure.
And a lot of the media attention that I got carried over into baseball. And I was a USA national junior player and all that. So
we got some baseball stuff with you too.
So I played in the summer all summer, and I don't want to make a long story too short, but I knew I was going to be a high draft pickup. I had a good senior year, and I had a pretty good senior year. I hit 13, 14
Did you dream of being the 5th pick though? I mean, that's high.
I didn't know. I wanted to be the first pick.
Here you are tagging that Sammy Sosa, so you did all right. That was the year he had the home runs.
That's
60
right.
Something.
98. I started opening day. But I'd played with Alex Rodriguez. He was the first pick the year before, and Derek Jeter was the first pick before that.
Nice.
And everybody's saying you're the next kind of in line, shortstop, high school guy, top guy in the country.
Chipper Jones was right before that.
Chipper Jones right before that. You're right.
Whole Sky School, yeah.
And so I was like, man, I want to be a first-round baseball guy. But I love football. My dad's a football coach, a football family. But anyways, I loved baseball too. I didn't know which one I liked the most. My goal was really to play both in the pros, and I loved Bo Jackson and Dion. But being a quarterback, that's a little bit
hard,
much, because you got to be there all the time. And so anyways, I got drafted by the Marlins, was excited and upset at the same time, because I knew I wasn't going to get to go play any more football, and I wanted to go to LSU. I wanted to try to help the program, and Curly and Phil Bennett and all those guys were upset, but I couldn't do anything about it. And Wayne Huizinga, the owner of the Marlins, had drafted me, and he goes, you're going to sign a no football clause in your contract, 5 years. So that would take me away from college football, I thought, forever, right? So I signed the thing. I remember
largest signing bonus in Major League Baseball draft history at the time.
Yeah, at the time. I was very blessed, and a lot of it had to do with paying me not to play football, I think, and Huizinga had big
you had
pockets.
leverage. You had leverage.
I had some leverage.
Yeah.
My agent, Jeff Morad,
right.
Who was
with Steinberg, right?
Absolutely awesome guy, Steinberg and Morad. First Star Wars agents, Jerry Maguire, the movie.
Big time, I know.
I was really close to Jeff. He's still like a big brother. He's an amazing guy. But anyways,
I love to hear you say that. I was an agent, and I have some that I consider little brothers too.
Yeah, he's a stud.
Still.
I mean, he's a stud. Yeah, he owns the McLaren F1 car. He owns the X Games. I mean, this guy has vaulted himself. He's done all right. Anyways, he wonderful guy, but he got me drafted in that position, that 5th overall, because he knew that they were the first ones in that draft that could pay that signing bonus that I wanted and give me the opportunity to be in the big leagues quick because they were a new franchise.
Right.
And Wayne Huizenga paid me the money. Shoot, I went to Florida. I signed. I remember the day I signed, though, I went back to my bedroom and cried.
You got drafted June 2nd. 12 something.
So you're good.
12.
I don't even remember that.
June 2nd, 1994. It was at 12:22, I think, or something like that. Well, that's when you got drafted, maybe. That's when you got drafted, right? Yep. I think I was reading. So I do a lot of research, man.
I was fired up.
I stay up late.
I know you.
To read.
You're a machine.
I read. No, okay. We're gonna take a break now because I know you got to get to the airport. So we're gonna take a break and we're gonna come back. We're gonna finish the Marlins story, and then you go into LSU, then tinkering with the pros. In football as well, you spent some time with Jamarcus Russell.
Yep.
You were with the Raiders. You got drafted by the Seahawks, and you spent the most of the time, I think, with the Browns, right?
Browns, yep.
So we're going to get into all that. We're coming right back. We're going to take a little break right now to catch our breath. We'll be right back here. Stay tuned on Primetime Sports.
Rock and roll will never die. It's old New Orleans, my oh my. Come on, baby, let's go rock and roll at the city lane. All night, let's roll, let's rock and roll. Baby, do the rock and roll. At the mid-city lanes, the home of rock and roll.
Inspired by the culture and spirit of New Orleans, the contemporary abstract and figurative work of Tony Mose and the urban expressionist art and jewelry of Tracy Mose are now on display and available at Esom Art Galleries. Esom Art Galleries are artist-owned and are located in Uptown New Orleans on Magazine Street and on Royal Street in the heart of the French Quarter. Esom Art Galleries, inspiration from the soul of New Orleans.
Fall in love with autumn with PJ's new seasonal lattes. Our pumpkin latte brings you all the flavors of a pumpkin pie with hints of cinnamon and nutmeg, like your favorite holiday dessert in a cup. And our s'mores latte with flavors of toasted marshmallows, warm milk chocolate, and graham cracker cinnamon is sure to bring back campfire memories. The PJ's Fall Seasonal Lattes, available at your local PJ's only for a limited time.
Hey, welcome back to Primetime Sports. I'm so glad I just had my first show ever, like I said in the beginning, that I'm taking the same guest the entire show. And I couldn't ask for a better guy, a Louisiana legend. This show is all about stars from Louisiana or who come to Louisiana and do great things, and he certainly qualifies. But Josh, good to have you back for segment 2, baby.
It is freaking awesome to be here, man.
I mean, hey.
I love New Orleans, but I love you more, baby.
Oh,
it's so much fun. No, you're so much fun.
All right, you're going to come every week. Okay. All right, my co-host now, Josh Boudillon. By the way, but I want to finish the Marlins things. You're like a media personality now. I mean, it's interesting because you're around. But the thing about the Marlins transition to the Tigers, and I'm going to share something that Rohan Davies shared with me, because I've known Rohan as long as I've known you almost, because I knew him when he was in high school at Miami. Yep. Because he was on our show there. Yeah. And I got into stuff he doesn't normally share. I mean, for real. Because
behind the scenes.
He was being honest. I mean, because I said, Ron, I've known you a long time. But we'll get into that because it segues from what you're going to say about going to LSU. Yeah. And go ahead and continue how that happened.
Well, I was
to play football after playing baseball.
I got hurt in '98. I started opening day. I got fortunate enough to be on the '97 World Series team. I was in WLAE all year. Bobby Bowe
with the Marlins.
With the Marlins, Bobby Bowe.
They just won the World Series in '97, right?
'97, and I backed up Bobby Bowe in the playoffs because Bobby Bowe because he had a hamstring injury. So I got called up in '97. Well, '98. Bobby Bowe was traded or something. There was a mass exodus of players. Well, Huizenga won the deal, and he's like, whatever, I'm gonna sell the team. He didn't want to pay
these guys. Kevin Brown, we could go on. Gary Sheffield.
Al Leiter.
Sheffield came to us with the Braves. I remember.
Sheffield is one of my best buds. He's a great dude, stud. But anyways, '98 I started opening day at third base, and I got hurt a month into the season. And that picture with Sosa earlier on the set. Was that early season '98, and I got hurt at third base tag play, tagging Jeremy Burnett, a throw from Sheffield from right field. He messes up my hand. I couldn't hold the bat, tore ligaments in my thumb.
Hurt your hand?
Yeah, I was tagging him. He slid over my thumb. And he tore ligaments. So I was out for like 4 or 5 months. I couldn't bat. Well, I go to AAA Charlotte in September, or late August, early September, to get some at bats, just to get some at bats at the end of the year. I thought I could do it, and I hit like 110 or something. I mean, it was like, you know, I hit like 6 for 60 or so, whatever. It wasn't great, right? It wasn't great.
Right, but you weren't full health.
So John Henry had bought the team who owns the Red Sox now, Fenway Sports Group. He had bought the team from Huizinga. Huizinga had sold it, and Henry. So I go, dude, this is my chance to go back and play college football.
Have you been thinking about it for a while?
I had been thinking about it for 2 years, and my brother was a starting receiver at LSU, Abram, at the time, and so I was fiending to throw to him in Tiger Stadium. I was sitting in AAA. I was probably going to start in AAA the next year. I called John Henry up. Well, Dombrowski was the GM at the time, Dave Dombrowski. Morad called Dombrowski.
That's Abram Booty right there.
There he is. Yeah. He was awesome.
He was great at LSU receiver.
Oh, he was awesome.
One of the best we've ever had.
Started as a true freshman.
One of the best we've ever had, yeah.
And so Morad called Dombrowski. He goes, dude, we got to get Josh out of the contract. Henry goes, you know what, since I didn't draft him, it was my 5th year of the no football clause. He goes, if he'll pay back this AAA salary, he can go to LSU, or he can go wherever he wants. He can go back and play football. And so I called DiNardo up and said, hey, listen, I'd love to come and play football for the Tigers. And DiNardo's like, well, come see me in my office, you know. And DiNardo had not recruited me, right? So Abram was on the team, right, and played, but DiNardo had not recruited me, so I didn't have a relationship.
It was Curly Holman,
I didn't have any relationship with DiNardo, right? And I show up on his front door, you know what I'm saying?
There's DiNardo.
And I said, listen, I want to play for LSU. Can I come and be a part of the team? He goes, we'd love for you to be a part of the team.
What year did you get there?
That was 99.
Okay, because 98. Okay, let me remind everybody. DiNardo took over and actually changed them pretty quick, because they had the doldrums of the early 90s.
Magic.
And they had Falk, and obviously Herb Tyler, who was just here.
Cecil the Diesel.
And Cecil, I mean, and Grondell Mealy. But they brought it back. I mean, they got into the top 5. Yeah. And then 98 happened, and they were like ranked 4th, 5th, or 6th. I remember Georgia came in. They were 3-0. And Georgia came in, and they lost like 28-27, and every game was a heartbreaking loss. I mean, it was like, and before the game, I've said this all the time, DiNardo could have run for the governor of Louisiana before the season and easily won. That's how great he had done to bring back the Magic. And then, I mean, every loss, I went to a lot of these. Bama was like overtime, but we squandered a 9-point lead late. We had a 2-touchdown lead in South Bend. I was at that game, Notre Dame, and we ended up losing that. But every game was a heartbreaker, and you know, they're finding ways to lose. So they end up 4-7 back in the 11-game season. And so 99 comes, and we hear you're coming. Yeah. And I'm like, and this is going to bring in Rohan Davey, because Rohan could have gone to Miami where he lived. He's from Jamaica, but grew up in Miami. And he could have gone to a lot of places. And we came in, and when he told me I'm picking LSU, I was like, oh my God, I didn't think that was going to be impossible, and I was fired up. And so when I said, Rohan, I got you. I want to know your honest thing. And if I didn't know him that well, he probably wouldn't have said it. But he goes, I said, what was your true feeling? What was your true feeling? Because, I mean, you were a star, and I built it up. Yeah. You were a star coming in, and you knew your term was coming. And then all of a sudden, this dude, he goes, I didn't even know who Josh Booty was. He goes, I'm like, they're telling me this old guy is coming in and I'm like, I said, that had to, I mean, what's that feel? He goes, I was pissed. He goes, I was pissed. I got to be. I said, who wouldn't be? Yeah. I mean, you thinking you're the guy. Nature. All of a sudden, this like boy wonder that everybody's been dreaming about for 5 years comes back. He's the prodigal son. So what was that like coming into that locker room?
It was different because we left out Craig Nall. Craig Nall was in that room too.
A future Green Bay Packer.
And he was the one that backed up Herb Tyler the year before.
Right.
And Herb Tyler was a very good college quarterback, and he had success because they ran the ball super effectively.
He won 26 of his first 31 games.
Dude, they had McClure, Faneca.
Yeah.
They had that
offensive line was amazing.
We didn't have those guys that next year. That when I showed up, we had a few pieces, but we weren't strong as that offensive line.
Yeah.
And we didn't have Kevin Falk, and we didn't have Cecil or Ron. You know, Rondell was the one player we had, but we had Larry Foster and Abram, and they were the 2 starters and 2 wide receivers.
2 good receivers, dude.
But Larry Foster got caught purse snatching in the quad and didn't play one game that year, and Abram played about 4 games because of a back injury.
Oh my God!
So now I ended up starting the 2nd or 3rd game of the season. And my first game was at Georgia on the road without Larry and Abram healthy, and with the offensive line.
I was at
young,
this game.
And we almost pulled off.
No, I was at this game.
We almost pulled off a win.
I remember, because Will Witherspoon had been on my show, too. Will Witherspoon's a linebacker.
See, you know all the Georgia guys.
Well, we had everybody.
Jasper Sanks.
But my point is, like,
Quincy Carter.
I was in the end zone where this happened. Will Witherspoon, you come back, a huge LSU comeback. It's a hot as heck day. I'm sitting next to Will Witherspoon's parents. He ended up being a Pro Bowl linebacker with the Panthers, for those of you who don't know. And we're like, I said, my Tigers are coming back. I remember the LSU fans I went to the game with. And all of a sudden you get the tying touchdown, we think, all right? We came back, okay, just seconds on the clock. We're going to go overtime here, you know. And then we go for 2. I'm like, ooh, that's ballsy on the road. Okay, we're going to do it. And then the pass, and I remember the dude just open, and then Witherspoon just jumps up and bats it down.
Tommy Banks was in the back of the end zone. I had rolled right, nothing open. So I bought a little time, and I looked all the way back across the field, and Tommy Banks is like this in the back of the end zone, the fullback from West Monroe, right?
Yeah, right.
Touchdown Tommy back in high school, and so I threw one across the field, and I'm like this, you know, and everybody's just hitting me, and I throw it across the field, and Witherspoon knocks it down. You know, we lose.
Thought he was going to catch it.
I was like, this is over. We're going to win this son of a gun. On the road, and they were like number 6. We were unranked. We had lost to Auburn
That was
already.
almost like he had to win on that play.
Yeah.
Because to save his job almost. Because he had done so well, but LSU fans, you have 2 bad years, you're done.
Yep.
And
it went.
The pressure.
It was a spiral down from there. It was tough. I mean, but like I said, we weren't. I think we ran the ball like 36-yard average a game in the SEC.
Yeah, terrible.
And we were a run team. Like, I was in 3rd and long every time, and I was just throwing balls up because I was like, we're not doing anything. We're down. It was a tough year, but Rohan and Craig and I got along pretty good in the room. Like, we never had any skirmishes or arguments or nothing. But, you know, I ended up winning the job like the 3rd week that I was there and kept it. But, man, it was tough.
Y'all all became NFL backup quarterbacks.
Yeah,
so. I mean,
we all got drafted. Matt Mock came in the next year, and Marcus Randall. And, I mean, we had a bunch of guys while I was there the 2 years I was there, but a lot changed when Saban came the next year.
That's where I want to go. Saban comes the next year, and then you go 6-3. I remember as a starter, and then LSU went 8-4. Saban's first year, they lost to UAB early. I remember there was a hurricane.
I was part of that deal. It was a nightmare.
Yeah. You lose that, and it's like UAB. I remember they were like, fire Saban. I said it's only game 2 or whatever. What are we doing? 1 maybe even. So my point is this. Talk about that year, because there was some ups and downs, but a lot of magic too, though.
Yeah, there was
the Alabama game. I mean, that was maybe been your best college game, at least up there. Auburn and Kentucky, I think, not maybe Kentucky, 34-0 or something.
Yeah, Mississippi State was probably the funnest one. We beat them.
Talk about all that.
You know, beating Alabama was my favorite because we hadn't beat them in Tiger Stadium in 25 or 30 years. I forget what the run was.
Yeah,
that they
we had tie back one
year. Like
30-year
run that they had, but
we
you know,
beat
just
them a lot in Tuscaloosa.
I felt like we were prepared the next year at a different level, and it's because of our staff, right? And Saban on the defensive side in practice, going against Jimbo Fisher, who is our offensive coordinator in practice, it was like we were getting ready to play on Saturdays at a high level.
Was Pelini there yet in defense?
Pelini was not there.
No, okay, I'm trying to think who was
We had, what was it, Phil Almation or something?
Yeah, because he brought in like Muschamp.
We had Lou Tepper the year before, and Lou Tepper's the nicest guy in the world, but we were getting killed on defense.
Right.
And a lot of it had because we didn't have any production on offense. As defense were on the field all the time.
Right.
But I think that next year with Jimbo calling plays, we got into a pro-style deal. I was in the shotgun like back in high school with 3 wides instead of underneath with 1 or 2 wides.
Jimbo had him offensive.
It was more my style and probably Rohan's and any throwing quarterback, right? It was more our style to be in the gun, making plays, you know, or trying to make plays. And so we had a lot more fun, I can tell you that. Now, there was some ups and downs. The UAB game, we beat Bama.
You had like some big wins in a row. I remember there was a streak, and then I was
like 5 in a row.
Arkansas, you lost 14-3
in the rain, and Rondell was hurt. Tommy Banks was our tailback, and as good as he is, he's not a tailback. No. We were very light in the pants at that position, and Tommy was heavy in the pants, but you know, we just couldn't get first downs. It was rainy. It was cold.
I remember the game.
It was miserable, and like I said, we just didn't play very well that day, and we had a chance to go to the SEC championship, you know, but we had to go up there and win that game.
I remember,
and we lost that game on the road, and we were bummed.
That would have been the first one because they got the first one the next year, and they beat Tennessee the year after you left. But then the day my mother died, I'll never forget. It's like I went with my brother. We go to the Georgia Tech LSU because we've been mourning all day, and we're like, I worked for Fox. I had 50-yard line tickets, had suite passes. So we said, let's go. And we get there, and all of a sudden we're down 14-3. And I want to get your mindset because they replaced you at halftime, right?
Yep.
With Rohan Davey.
Yep.
I remember it like yesterday, and all of a sudden LSU has this big run and beats Tech, thank God, because I was like mourning. I needed some happiness that day. But they won, and then Rohan goes into the Sugar Bowl and sets a Sugar Bowl record for most yards.
The next year, yeah.
Was that the following year?
Yeah, that
was the following year, right.
Yeah.
But my point is like, what was your mindset when that whole thing was happening?
It was a tough situation because I think Saban, kind of like right now at Alabama or with Hurts and Tua, you got two guys that can play, right?
Yeah, right.
And if Spurrier did it a lot.
Both those dudes are doing great in the NFL right now, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Spurrier did it a lot at Florida. He was like, he'd go with the hot hand, right, or go with whoever he felt like.
Doug Johnson.
Or he'd put him in for a series, and see it was Doug Johnson, Jesse Palmer.
Yes.
They had like 3 or 4 guys.
They would shuttle whoever's hot.
They'd shuttle in whoever's hot. Well, we had 3 guys that were capable. It was just I was the starter at the time.
Later it was Rex Grossman and Brock Berlin, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
right.
It really was. And I can remember so many times where Spurrier, inserted quarterbacks on top of quarterbacks. But I think in that, we had a left tackle, Brandon Winey, and I like Brandon, but he sat out the first half. His agent told him to sit out of the whole game.
Wow,
and he was up in the stands. Like
he came back in.
At halftime, he felt bad because I was getting sacked. He goes, I got to come back and protect my quarterback. His agent had told him to sit out.
That's like one of the first times an agent would have done that.
Yeah.
Because
and Brandon came back in and dressed out for the second half. Jimbo, we were calling a lot of long play action stuff.
What did the coaches do about that?
Well, Jimbo goes, we're gonna throw a lot of quick passes in the second half, and Brandon Winey's gonna play. And I'm like, and then Saban comes over to me and goes, we're gonna give Rohan a chance first series, see how he does. Well, we throw like a couple slants,
you got
Josh
the guy
Reed,
blocking for
and
him.
now you got your left tackle because I got sacked like 4 times in the first
you were
half.
running for your life.
I didn't have any touchdowns, but I didn't have any picks in that first half, and nobody really remembers that game.
No.
But I was like a 7 of 14 for 120 yards, no touchdowns, no picks, but we didn't have any offensive production. And I got sacked a bunch.
Right.
We
I
punted.
didn't
bring our left tackle
story. I never knew that.
Brandon Winey came back for the second half, and
sitting in the stands, and he goes, usually a coach would be like, hey, dude, you already quit on this team.
Exactly.
But he's like, we want to win this game. He wants to win his first bowl game. I get it.
He let him come back and play in the second half. He was in a sweatsuit.
That's crazy.
And Jimbo dialed up some great plays, and Josh Reed went off, and Rohan was getting him the ball, and it just spiraled into a win. And I don't think Georgia Tech was that good. They had 2 good defensive ends.
They did.
Back then.
Yeah.
I forget their names.
Don't worry about the names.
Yeah. But anyways, that was a tough night because I was like, that was my team, at that time. And we had a good run. But Rohan's a great buddy, still is.
Sure.
I was happy for him that he played well. It helped him, I think, the next year have that experience going into the next year.
I want you to ask you a question. Did you envision, because you were there for his first year in the SEC, Nick Saban, and he coached LSU, obviously, for 5 seasons maybe. But the fact is he won a title in season 4, or maybe, but my point is that Nick Saban, did you have any idea he'd be this great? I mean, like the greatest of all time? Because it's not that easy to see that early.
I didn't know, I hadn't been around other college football coaches in like meeting settings and film sessions.
Just him and DiNardo.
Yeah, just him and DiNardo, but I hadn't been around that many. And I go, this guy is definitely on it, like detailed, and everybody talks about that.
Yeah.
He doesn't require sleep. He's a machine, right? And he recruits well. And I'm telling you, his recruiting that year, I saw it because he got Clayton and Spears and Devery Henderson and Corey Webster and Marquise. He got all those cats to come in there.
Most of those dudes that were on my show in Atlanta.
And I'm telling you, he got all the studs that he needed to get to build it.
He closed the fence in Louisiana.
He did.
That's the first guy that
he got Whitworth. I mean, he started getting all the guys, right, and keeping them and building it up. And I'm like, this thing is gonna be good, right? Because he's stockpiling the team. And so I knew from a recruiting perspective, it was going really good, and how hard we worked, we knew we had a chance. And I go, once he puts all that together with a good staff, the ceiling's very
You dreamed
high.
of being a 2-sport athlete, and you already had done baseball. So now you're getting drafted in the 6th round by the Seahawks, and You know, talk about briefly, because I want to get into stuff with all the celebrities you hang out with. But the NFL experience, and you got to be around Jamarcus, who was the first overall pick, and we know what happened there.
Oh, yeah.
But just the whole experience while you were there with the Browns, Seahawks, Browns, and Raiders.
Sure, I got drafted by Mike Holmgren. Hasselbeck was there. We were roommates. We're still good buddies. Dilfer had come in. Hasselbeck wasn't ready for the first game the year that he was supposed to start.
I think we have your rookie card with the Seahawks somewhere in there.
Anyway, so Hasselbeck came in, and we were best buddies, but they brought in Dilfer, and they put me on, oh, God, look at that hair. That's young Josh.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I got some grays now, but, yeah, so I got put on practice squad as a rookie, and they brought Dilfer in to start for Hasselbeck for a couple of games till he was ready. I got put on waivers, and I got picked up by the Cowboys, the Jags, and the Browns. We have to go to the team with the worst record the year before, and it was the Browns. But Bruce Arians and Butch Davis, I had been recruited by both of them at Mississippi State and Miami.
Miami, right.
And so I went straight to Cleveland, and I felt at home, to be honest with you, because I knew those coaches well.
Great
and
guys.
I'm like, you know what? I want to be around. And I just liked the vibe that they had there. We had Pagano was there. A lot of that Miami staff that I knew from way back with when Orgeron recruited me in high school. I mean, so that was home. I stayed there for 3 years, but they had just drafted Tim Couch first overall, and I had to back him up for 3 years because he was making the money, and deservedly so. He had a great.
I think his first win was here in New Orleans on some crazy pass.
Yeah, I was here.
I remember it like yesterday.
I was a backup here. Yeah, it was Aaron Brooks.
Did you enjoy the experience?
Oh yeah, I mean I love the NFL. I love football. Absolutely love. I love it way more than baseball. People always ask me compare baseball to football. I'm like, listen, no comparison. Football is a lot more fun.
Right.
Baseball's long. You don't get hit. Like you do in football.
And the minors ain't that much fun.
No, the minors is not much fun. I hated it.
Right.
And the long bus trips and all that. I was like, I want to play, in the NFL, and I want to play football. And anyways, my dad was a football coach. My brother was playing football. I was like, get me back to football.
Yeah.
But I developed some amazing relationships in baseball that are still like top-notch buddies of mine, and would never have done anything different. I got to play both, Scott.
Right. You loved it.
I didn't have a Hall of Fame career, but I'm like, I got to play both. I wanted to play both at the same time.
You wanted to be the first quarterback to do it.
I wanted to be the first.
I know Elway tinkered a little bit.
He played A-ball for Oneonta in the Yankees organization. Elway was my hero.
Yeah, what a great. We have shots of you and Elway. I mean, now we're going to get into the Josh Now life because you love golf. You're out there with John Daly. You're with Bula. And I want to get some of that going because every picture I saw you with some celebrity. I mean, honestly. And you're living the life. So what is Josh Booty today?
Well, I turned into an entrepreneur, and I do a lot of media, like you said. I cover football. I'm about to start a new show with Rated Red out of Nashville.
What is Rated Red?
Media company.
Okay,
so I'm going to do some fun stuff. Me and a singer-songwriter out of Nashville, Tyler Reeve, and Coach Noel Mazzoni, which is a longtime offensive coordinator, SEC, NFL, Pac-12 guy. We're going to have a lot of fun doing a show. But me and my brother came up with the concept of a business that we call Bula. There's John Daly.
He looks like Santa.
I love it. And there's Coach Mazzoni right there on the far right.
Real quick, I was with John Daly once with my Pat Dye Jr., who's I worked for.
Oh yeah.
And he was taking a pee on my new car. Like after he was drunk. It was after Sugarloaf or something at PGA. And I said, what are you doing? He goes, oh, this is Arkansas Car Wash. Just making your car more valuable now. I was like, what are you doing, dude? All right. So
Bula's a peer-to-peer social gambling app, or a challenge app, we call it, where you can challenge, dare, wager your friends. That's my Keanu Reeves look.
I love it. I love it. That's a Josh. Go ahead.
Baby. Every now and then. No, so we're super excited about launching Bula, and we're taking TikTok and Venmo and combining them to where you can have fun with your friends, whether it's video gaming or whether it's golf or whatever it is.
But you can
bar games.
Some stuff like
you can challenge each other for money.
Okay.
So I can bet you can't get the girl's number at the bar. I can bet you can't shoot 90 today on the golf course. It's any bet. you memorialize your own bet.
I see now.
It's not a sports book bet. There's no bookie. There's no vig. It's transaction fees. It's fun betting. So it's
now you hit me when you said TikTok.
It's skill-based gaming.
Skill-based gaming.
That's what we call it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You're one of the best at that. There's no doubt about it. Skill-based gaming that's your new nickname. SKB. Skill-based gamer right here.
We're excited about it, man. It's going to launch in November. John Daly's a part. We've got some great celebrities involved, and that's a lot of the reason why, I do a lot of the golf tournaments and hang out with these guys. They're all
David Ortiz. We're going to run through some of these.
Big Papi. Big Papi. Levon Hernandez.
They stole the World Series from the Braves.
MVP. Chuck
Liddell. I mean,
there's
MMA
my brother Jack, my boy Steve Fowler.
We've got all the siblings.
Johnny Damon.
Johnny Damon, a legend. I mean, we got
Frankie Molak.
I mean, you're running through John Elway. I mean, that's one of my heroes too. I mean, when you talk about the greatest of all time, he's certainly in the conversation. And I got to tell you, as people, you are one of the greatest. You hung out with my man Mincy.
I love Ben Mintz.
I was trying to get back to hang out, watch some football, y'all. He was just on the show. Did he tell you?
Oh, he did. He did. I saw some of y'all's stuff on social, but I gave him his first start.
I met him through you. I was with John Brady.
That's right.
And your boys. We got to talk about Parker and Peyton. Your boys that are senior twins.
Look at Pate. Yeah, he's a quarterback at Evangel now. Parker's a receiver. They're
just
seniors.
Like Abram and you.
They connect like crazy. That's us at Clemson for a visit last year, and they're at Evangel, man, trying to do their thing. But they connect a lot. Parker's a very, very, very good receiver. Peyton's a great quarterback. He's also
Are they going to play on the next level? What are they doing?
Oh,
they are.
Yeah,
okay,
they should.
Good.
I don't know where they're going to end up, but
look at the glasses.
Look, yeah, Parker's got the glasses. Everybody thinks he can't run, and he runs right by him.
Isn't that the beautiful thing? I know you have a flight to catch, but I got two. You were on the Zoom.
This is awesome.
You were on the Zoom, and I owe you these. So you got, instead of just one, Mr. John's Steakhouse, which is Desi Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
He's got Desi's in this. And then we got Shays Delashays, which you can go to Shays Delashays or Delashays on St. Charles.
This is awesome.
But here's the thing.
Awesome.
You've never had task, and this is what blows my mind.
Love this.
Drew Brees, all of them. I'm giving you two cool colors, too, because I owe you a shirt from being on the previous show on the Zoom.
I'll be working out in this thing in the morning, baby.
We got this. Feel soft. You haven't felt this yet.
Oh, I love that.
You'll throw away all the other stuff you got.
Task.
That's a light blue. And then here we got nice black one, because I know you like to. You can even wear that one out, my man. And
thank you, brother.
And this is Josh Booty. I would continue talking, but you got to go. And I appreciate you, man. You're one of my favorite guys in the world. I tell people that all the time.
You do an awesome job, and
I bring
a lot of sports and your relationships to the table, man.
And I love the way you keep your relationships and how you nurture them, and you're passionate about what you do. You're really a great dude. And I love being around you.
I appreciate it.
All right, that's Josh.